push me. And I go around the laundromat and they go the opposite way. And as soon as I come out the laundromat, I lift my shirt up. As soon as I lift my shirt up, that's when I look. I was like, I'm bleeding right here. I was like, I got shot. When that happened, I was filled with what they call death anxiety. So every day I wake up, I had the fear of dying. Like every day, like I'll be at work and I would think a customer coming in is gonna kill me. Like I literally had for months that fear.
Dios les bendiga, mi gente. Bienvenidos a otro episodio de este su podcast, el testimonio favorito. Sí, seguimos aquí para la gloria y la honra del Señor. Súper agradecido. Gracias a ustedes, ¿verdad? Que siempre sintonizan, ustedes que lo comparten, ustedes que le dan like, ustedes que dejan su comentario. Gracias, de verdad, gracias por respaldar este canal. Seguimos trabajando, prontamente vienen sorpresas, vamos a seguir haciendo muchas cosas, ¿verdad? Para la gloria del Señor y vamos a seguir trabajando para el reino de Dios a través de estos testimonios. Y hoy tenemos un nuevo invitado y ¿verdad? Vamos a entrar un poco en el inglés hoy. Y hoy tenemos con nosotros a Hector Jr.
Yes, sir.
God bless you, Hector. How you doing?
I'm good, man. God bless you, man. It's an honor to be here, man.
Man, it's an honor for me that you are here, bro. I'm so excited, man, that you're here because I know it's going to be an awesome testimony. And thank you. Thank you for just saying yes.
Yeah, man. No, man. Thank you, man, for asking me.
No, your dad, man. Your dad was like, man, you gotta sit down with my son. I'm like, okay. And then when I call you, I'm like, man, I wonder if he's gonna answer. And you answer right away. You're like, yeah. I said, you ready? He said, yeah, I'm ready. I was like, great, man.
Why not? Man?
So let's do it. Where Hector's come from?
I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Born and raised here all my life. Left to Florida a couple of times, but everything was here. Growing up from a kid to now, this is all I know.
So how's your upbringing over there in Lancaster?
Growing up, it was, I had my moments where I was like the trouble kid. I would test my parents, get in trouble, in school, disrespectful sometimes, trying to show off. Sometimes breaking windows, getting too excited, being kind of like being a follower at some point. But then there was also that Hector that was on point when it came to school. Like I was still doing what I had to do in school, but sometimes I'm like, I was the class clown or out of school. I'm just out there running around. But for the most part, I say I was like, I ask my parents all the time, was I a bad kid? They're like, you were, but you weren't. Like, I wasn't the one that was, like, smoking weed at 7 years old or something like that. I just kind of had a slick mouth and, doing what kids do nowadays. But like I said, I had the good part of me all the way till I was, I say, 7th grade. I was doing school and outside. I was great. I played football growing up all my life. From a kid to high school, I played football. So that was something that kept me going in middle school. But like I tell everybody, like I had every system. Like I'm talking about PlayStations, GameCubes. Every system we had that came out, I had. My stepdad was a drug dealer. So he was a big-time drug dealer. So anything we did in school, we got it because of him or, because he had it like that. But there was times where I would get taken away because I was acting up. But for the most part, I got everything. Every Jordan that came out, any new Timbs, anything. I had
you were
spoiled. Spoiled to the T by a man that wasn't my biological dad. But growing up, that's all I pretty much knew was him.
Yeah, he was your role model.
Yeah, so,
So you grew up without your dad?
Yep. Yeah, my dad was, he was there, but it wasn't much. It was mainly him. That's all I knew was my stepdad. And then 2007 of January, the feds came and raided the crib. It was like 7 o'clock in the morning. Me and my older brother, we're getting ready to leave and go to school. I'm in 6th grade, he's in 7th, and they're getting ready to break the door down. As soon as they opened the door, my brother opened the door for us to leave. They were right there. Made us sit down in the sala, and then went upstairs to go get my stepdad and my mom, whatever. We knew what it was for. We were older. We understood. And then They ended up bringing them down. They let us say bye. We hugged them, whatever, because we knew what it was. And then we went next door because my grandma lived 2 houses away, and we went to go get my cousin to tell him, but also to go to school. And as we're chilling there, they come back. They come there and they go and get my uncle. So at 12 years old, I'm already seeing raids. So it's
So
like,
12 years old, you had like a very impacting experience, you know what I mean? So you're doing your way to school and the cops come and raid your house and take your stepdad and your mom,
yeah,
and then come back for your uncle.
yeah, and then come next door as we're getting ready to leave with my cousin. Come next door and pick up my uncle. So 12 years old, like I said, I'm seeing that. I'm like, what the
Very
heck?
impacting, yeah.
Yeah.
How that changed your life though?
It for me, honestly, it was like in the beginning, it wasn't much. It didn't impact me much. But as I gotten older, it started. Some of that kind of used to play in my head because, times when I go to sleep, I like wake up like, yo, what if somebody raised my house? So that was in the back of my mind at all times. But at a young age, it was just like, damn. Like people knew about it, found out about it. Oh, you guys are the kids that your dad just, got their house raided or whatever.
So who you went to live with then?
We still know, but they didn't take my mom.
Okay.
So
they just took him.
Yeah, they just took him, and we didn't end up going to school that day. I remember that day like the back of my, and we ended up staying there, and from there, I can tell you from that moment on, that's when times really got rough, because he went away for about 7 years, and that's when it was just my mom. So, mom was trying to make a way. She was a stay-at-home mom when he was home. So she had to start working again. She had to learn how to raise 4 kids, sometimes 6, because my 2 stepbrothers would come over by herself. Then we had my grandparents and my uncles and them would help from time to time. But it got to the point where she lost herself to where she couldn't pay nothing. We were going without water. We would have to have somebody, come and, finesse the system to bring our water back on. Same thing with the electricity.
So you start going through necessities.
And then she ended up, start doing drugs. Next thing you know, she'll be out for a couple of days or, a weekend. And it's just me and my...
You're a teenager now, so you experiencing all this as a teenager, that has to be hard because that would take a toll on any teenager.
Yeah.
Do you start acting up because of that?
Yeah, that's where, that's why I say I got worse. I got worse as I got older, but yeah, from there I got worse to where there was even times where I was going to school with dirty clothes. But yeah, she'll leave. We'll have our friends come over, eat, mess around, eat. That's when I started getting high. I started getting high at 14, 15 years old. And in order for us to make ends meet, we was doing house parties, charging people from school and all of that. We'll tell them just so we could, pay our rent, because mom was doing what she had to do, and she's there, high or drunk with, family, and we're at a house party just so we can pay our bills. Wow. And from that moment, she ended up finding somebody, and she ended up moving to New York. And there was like a point where she didn't really move everything out the house. So we used to go there, me and my brothers and a couple of my friends, we used to go there and sneak in and get high. And there was this one time the neighbors came, and that's when the cops came. We tried to go out through the attic window. They caught us. So we ended up downstairs. Like I said, I'm probably like 16 at that time. And there's like 8 of us. They put us in a paddy wagon. So 8 years old, at 16 years old was my first time I got arrested. And they took us to the police station. They just charged us with trespassing because they ended up calling my mom. And she was like, yep, press charges on all of them. So at 16,
it's a misdemeanor.
Yeah, so at 16 that's when, and then from that moment on, I guess the city or the bank, whatever, took the home. And we still had so much in there. We still had bureaus in there, TVs in there. Baby books from when we were kids, all of that was in there because what I did that, they took all of that. So we have like no baby pictures or nothing. And, from there, that was, mainly those things like that happened. And then she ended up going to Florida, and I say probably like my junior year, she came down to visit, and I was like, man, let me just go over there and give it a try. And I went over there and started bumping heads with her and her boyfriend, and 17, 18 years old. I think I just turned 18 over there. I came back. I was like, man, Florida's not for me. I like the city. I like the fast life. I don't, I always had an issue with authority. And then for her I was like, nope, I don't want none of that. So I came back here, kept smoking weed, dropped out of school, didn't want to go back to school, bouncing from house to house, staying with my dad sometimes, aunt's house, still with my best friend. And at that point, around that age, that's where I was really going in. I started smoking weed even more. We started drinking. We started partying. We used to just be out all day, all night. And that's all we did. So little, drugs here and there, weed. But that was really all that was. And then I tried to do Florida again as I got older. I was about 19. Yeah, about 19, I tried Florida again.
So were
And
you trying to change your life, or just rolling with it?
yeah, I was just rolling with it, man. That's all. Me and my friends, that's all we did. I worked at McDonald's.
And it makes sense because when you're that young and you don't have Christ in your life, you're looking for the fun. Let's be honest. When
And
you're out
that's,
there and you don't have Christ in your heart and you're that young, you're looking for the fun. You know what I mean? Because I did the same thing. At 17, I moved to Boston without my parents wanting me to.
yeah,
They didn't want to, and I went against them, and I ended up deep, like, oof.
yeah,
My darkest days were over there in Boston. In 9 months, I did things that I never thought I would do. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And that's how I was. I was young, and I didn't care. I wanted to roll with it.
heck yeah, that's all we cared about, bro. We just going parties. I'm talking about walking home 3 o'clock in the morning drunk and high at 15,
Yeah,
16,
but that's
18
normal
years
for a
old.
person that's living that life.
Exactly.
So when things got complicated, let's go into when things went from just partying to things getting deep.
So when I came back from Florida the second time, I moved in with my older brother, which was from my stepdad. I moved in with him, and at the time, him and my little brother were hustling. And I'm not talking little weed. That's
They were big time hustlers.
Yeah, what you could say. Yeah, we were, started hustling crack cocaine and stuff like that.
So you got into the game with them.
Yep, got in the game with them, and from there it started off was like, you do this, I'll pay you this, and it got to the point where like I had my own things, and we started moving as a unit. And during that time, we were chilling. Obviously, that's when I was taking on. That's when I would start caring about the materialistic stuff. I was like all the stuff that I had when I was young, when I used to get from my stepdad, and I couldn't get because of mom.
Now you can get it yourself.
Now I can get it myself. So I was doing all of that. We used to go out. I used to treat everybody. I was, I was him pretty much when it came to like my friend group.
There's a baller.
Because my friends, they were selling little weed, little nicks and dimes and stuff like that, but they were working. So I was the one that was, really into that.
So you didn't have an actual job. Your job was to sell drugs.
That was my job. Yep. I had a little job. I had little jobs here and there, McDonald's,
little cover ups or whatever.
Yeah, whatever. But that was what I did. And then there was just one day where my brother and both my brothers ended up leaving. I think they went out of town or whatever. So I had the phone. It was me and one of my friends that I met through them. But I ended up knowing him all my life, and we were hustling while they were out all day, and we split up. We was like, yo, we'll meet back up later. We're going to go to a basketball game. I'm like, all right, cool. So after that, we split up. I called my cousin, and I said, yo, let's go out to eat. We went out to eat. We're chilling. And, I remember my brother on my dad's side, he was like, yo, you coming over? I'm like, yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm going over there. And then one of my best friends, I was supposed to meet up with him that day. I ended up forgetting all about that. And after I got done eating out with my cousin, he dropped me off at McCaskey at the basketball game. So I'm there just chilling. We're watching the basketball game like nothing. And then after the basketball game, there's a McDonald's there, right there by the school. Everybody goes there after the games. It's been like that since I was a kid until adults. So we go there and we're all just chilling. Next thing you know, there's people arguing. I guess they had beef or whatever. Talking, blah, blah, blah. People instigating it. I'm not thinking nothing of it. I'm chilling. I didn't got nothing to do with it. I'm there chilling, ordering my food. I go outside with the boy that I was with earlier in the day, met up with him. We outside with a couple of our other friends. We're just chilling outside talking. And as we're doing that, there's a car come pulling up. And from right there to right here, that's how close it was. Got out the car, 2 shooters. Bang, bang, bang. Shots fired. Mind you, I'm this close. As soon as the shots get fired, I run into a McDonald's, run out the other end, and out the other end, I'm not thinking nothing of it. There's a laundromat across the street. As I'm being alert, I hear the car coming back around, and I'm like, oh shoot, they about to come to finish me. And I go around the laundromat, and they go the opposite way. And as soon as I come out the laundromat, I lift my shirt up. As soon as I lift my shirt up, that's when I look. I was like, I'm bleeding right here. I was like, I got shot. From that moment, I called my older brother because he lived 5 minutes away. That's the one I was staying with. I called him. I told him what happened. He said, the door's open. My little brother called me, said, yo, what happened? He was like, you good? I'm like, yeah. Whole time, I'm thinking I got a bullet right here because I feel something. So I'm thinking it just went in and it stuck. And as I get to my brother's house, he looks at it, he notices I lift up my shirt, there's an exit wound. So it went in and went out. For it to be that close to go in and out, it's by the grace of God. And then, I go to the hospital and that's where it got scary for me. As they're cutting me up, cutting my clothes up, doing my x-rays, I'm chilling. But I'm telling it to everybody because it was at the moment where the doctor took me up in the elevator, and I was like, well, what are we doing now? He said, we're going to take you up for surgery. So me thinking, I'm like, in most movies, you see a lot of people don't make it after surgery.
Yeah, your mind start running.
So that's where my heart dropped. That's where I was like, I'm about to die. So and I'm sitting there like, damn, like, I'm like, genuinely like, I'm scared to death. And as I get up, they take me there and, plugging me up, getting ready to do surgery on me. And I just remember looking up and I'm just telling God, like, I'm sorry, speaking to him. Can't remember the words exactly. And they gave me the anesthesia and it was like, listen, count to 3. I counted, bang, went to sleep, woke up with the chills, but I woke up and it hit me that, like, I was alive. I was, it was probably like the next day, but when I woke up from that, I went to my room and I'm just sitting there, still in pain, still high, still recovering. And I lift up my shirt and that's when I see all the scars. You see the scar, you see the staples, see all of that. And that's when, it hit me. And I'm just like, wow. And my dad and my sisters and my brother come up and I could see their faces. Their faces were like in shock. Because my dad will tell you, when he found out the news, he was numb. And he would tell you when I found out, years later, that when he was driving to the hospital, all he remembered telling God was like, listen, if you're going to take my son, let me see him before you take him. So when I seen his face and he told me that and I seen my brother's face, it was just so real, bro, that the faces that they had, they were scared that they really thought, I was about to be gone. Because you don't know what's going to happen. You hear he got shot, in surgery. You don't know. There's all that time frame in there. And, by the grace of God, that it didn't hit no main organs or nothing. It went through and through. And, I suffer with some consequences, like with the blast in my stomach, but doesn't compare to nothing, bro. I'm still here by the grace of God, and by that. And at that time, I wasn't.
You wasn't serving God yet. Did that stop you from continuing the streets, or you went right back into it?
That made me 10 times worse. Were
you looking for vengeance?
Yep. But I'm gonna tell you, let me backtrack. When I was about 15, 16, I moved in with my dad, and I was in the beginning when my dad first started going to church. And living with him, you was forced to go to church with them. So at that time, I went and I accepted, the Lord or whatever. But, so some people, I like to get that, facts because, it wasn't after I got shot that I accepted the Lord. I knew who he was at 15, 16, but didn't really know. Just pretty much got forced. But yeah, after that, I got shot though. It made me 10 times worse. I mean, I'm talking about I was looking for revenge every day.
So you knew who did it.
Nope, I
So it
see
was
it.
for you. It was nothing to do with those kids arguing. This one was for you.
But that's the thing, right? So the dude that I was with all day that we was like, we'll meet up later, he was with me. He was to my right. The shots were intended for him and the other two people next to me. It was for them. But the fact that I was there, what the streets were saying, that's what he gets for being with them. And the two people that shot me, the one I grew up with and the other one I grew up with in school, and we're real close with them. But the fact that you hang out with these people and these people, that's what happens.
That's why a lot of young kids don't realize, you know what I mean, that they out there in the street playing to be a thought. And guess what? But when you out there, and I always tell my son that, you always make sure that you do things right and be careful who you're hanging out with because you with somebody that they own something. When they coming for that person, whoever they take, they take. And people don't understand that. Like,
Nah.
and sorry, but that's the law of the street. You know what I mean? And that's why we need to, let people know,
bro.
hey, listen, the devil doesn't play and the street doesn't either.
At all, bro. The bullets ain't got no names, bro. It don't matter what it is, bro. The bullets is gonna fly. And so for me, I look at it as like, yeah, innocent bystander, but it's also being part of the streets.
But they also knew who you was. So you would have think they
Yeah.
would spare you, but no.
Nah, but at the end of the moment, nah, they didn't. It was afterwards when they found out I got shot that they knew it was me. And they was like, damn. Because like the one dude, my one boy that I went to school with, my friends ended up meeting up with him. It was like, yo, tell Heck I'm sorry. We didn't mean for it, for him to get hit. The other dude, that's the one I was looking for too, because the one that my friends ended up meeting with, he ended up getting caught up and he ended up going to jail for another shooting. So yeah, so after that happened, I was looking for revenge, bro. Like I started popping pills, started popping Percocets, Xannies, all of that, and any chance that I got that I seen him, I didn't know what was gonna happen. But there was this one time that I had spoke about it that I had seen him at a job I was gonna work at. He was there working, and I'm getting ready to I went to the bathroom. The manager gives me my clothes to change, and the manager comes and he was like, "Listen, I can't hire you." I'm like, "Why?" He was like, "Somebody in here doesn't feel safe working with you. They feel in conflict." But in my head, I'm like, "You're the one that shot me. Why are you scared?" I told him, I said, "I'm not gonna do nothing." Little does he know, one of my best friends worked there. As soon as I was gonna make my way over there, I was gonna do whatever I can possibly right right there, right then and there. I didn't care who was in there. I was gonna do him in dirty. And he was like, "Nah, I can't do it." So I didn't see him. And then fast forward, it was a night out. Me and one of my friends, he had recently got shot too. And we ended up leaving the club. I was drunk. I was high off pills. I was numb. I was like, "Yo, let's go." He didn't even ask no questions. We left. We went to the locations where we know where they be at. It was like 2, 3 in the morning. We drove by. I had the mask on. I had the gun, cocked the gun back and everything. And we went. We didn't see nothing. We waited. Didn't see nothing. Then we went to go look for the guy that shot me. We waited. Didn't see nothing. It was to the point where I was so high, I was just going to shoot his sister's house up just because I wanted them to know, like, I'm not, I'm not playing. And by the grace of God, bro, I never seen him because, like I said, I wouldn't be here. I'd probably be doing life in prison because of that. Because for years, I had anger towards them and wanted so much revenge. But, by the grace of God, I never found him. I never seen him again.
Is that crazy? That's so crazy what you just said because you know how many kids with that same, thinking have committed crazy stuff. Like you just said, that it was to the point that you was willing to go and just shoot at that sister's house. She had nothing to do with it, but because of the drugs you was under and the revenge that you had in your heart, they was willing to do anything just to cause some damage. And thanks God, that he had a better plan for you and he didn't allow it to happen. But that takes me to think, wow, man, so many kids right now that they're in jail, so many families that go to suffer and stuff because somebody in that same train of thinking, you know what I mean? Did something like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Did something crazy like that, and it's crazy because that's how the enemy operates, you know what I mean? It was like he was all about using you as a puppet to make some damage, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because he knew the plans that God had for you. He knew the time was cutting short.
Exactly.
So what's up? What happened after that though?
So after that, I end up not seeing them or nothing like that, and I end up going to school. And I was like, man, I just went to job. I went to Job Corps. I was like, I need to stop selling drugs or whatever. And I ended up going to school. After that, I finished school. I came back. I was chilling. I was like, I'm about to probably go to college but nope. I ended up going right back into the streets. Started selling weed this time. I was selling weed, and after that, while I'm selling weed, I got arrested that one time, but it was for something that had to do with the car. But when they end up arresting me, I end up finding out I had a warrant from 2 years ago. So in 2016, I sold to an undercover cop. So, but they didn't charge me until 2018. So when that ended up having that, but fast forward, they charged me with a little bit of weed that I had on me, and I found that out. I ended up going to court. This is God's grace again. Like I said, when I was in there, I only did 10 days, and they kept me in there longer because of that warrant that I had. The weed charge, they let me,
Drop it.
yeah, they gave me a misdemeanor for that. I ended up going to court, and with the undercover sale and with everything, they ran concurrent. I only had to do 2 years probation
Oh wow.
for all of that instead of that. And during that whole time, my two brothers ended up getting arrested. They ended up doing state time. And while they're in there, the feds pick up my little brother. And during that, things started to escalate, people talking. My older brother ended up having to turn himself in. And from him telling me, I guess on the paperwork that I asked him, I said, what about me? He said they didn't have substantial evidence on me to prove that I was with them. Because, mind you, I was with them. But what I think it was that time frame that when I got shot, because that's around the time they started watching them. So when I got shot, to fast forward a couple of years, in between that is where I stopped selling drugs. So during that time is when they got him. So they didn't have substantial evidence on me. Like my little brother right now, he's doing 12 and a half. He did most of he spent all his 20s in federal prison. My older brother's in there now. He probably has like another year or two. They gave him 9.5. And then, like I said, by the grace of God.
Yeah, because you were supposed to be in the same because you was part of the organization.
Exactly.
All right, so now let's fast forward now because everything that you had to tell us is clear that wow, man, God really has been showing off in your life little by little. You know what I mean? That time that you gave your life to Christ, it wasn't in vain. God had a plan. So let's turn it around. When was that moment where you finally give your life to Christ?
So the moment I gave I reconciled back with Christ was in 2023, I believe. But I tried Florida again, didn't like it. But before that, I experienced what I tell people was I say me getting shot was scary, but it was this right here was more scary because it was a constant everyday thing. I was gonna go to a basketball game. There was some famous dude that he was going high school young boy that was gonna come and play basketball in Reading. So I was gonna go up there, me and my uncles. And as I'm at work, I haven't been to a basketball game since I got shot. So it triggered something in my mind and brought that fear of dying back. So when that happened, I was filled with what they call death anxiety. So every day I wake up, I had the fear of dying. Like every day, like I'll be at work and I would think a customer coming in is gonna kill me. Like I literally had for months that fear that I couldn't describe. It was like I like to tell people like a high off shrooms or something like that you can't come down from, and that's how scary it was. That
Like panic attacks based on what happened to
that's
you.
yep, it triggered, and it was like that constantly for every day. That it crippled me to the point where I didn't want to go to work. I had to. I didn't want to take a shower. I didn't want to do
So it
nothing.
took you into a deep depression. That's what it did, right?
Yep, I didn't, and you had the depression and the fear on top of it. I didn't want to do nothing, and during that, it stopped me from. I had that fear because I was like, bro, if I die, I'm going to hell. Then I stopped. I stopped smoking weed. I stopped popping pills. I stopped drinking lean. I stopped going out. I stopped drinking all. I stopped doing all of that. The only thing I kept doing was smoking cigarettes at the time. And fast forward, I had that for months. I went to Florida, and little by little, months go by. It slowly, progressed and went away. But I still had that thought. But it wasn't. I wasn't normal how I was before. And I ended up coming back from Florida, and my brother on my dad's side invited me to Easter service, and I was like, all right, cool. I went over there, and that's when I reconciled with God, and things changed. But it wasn't until that same camp that Henry went to, that same camp right there is what gave me the strength and the boost to continue to seek God. That once camp was over, I told my dad, let's do it again. It was from that moment that I wanted to continue to seek God, that I slowly started to get my peace and my joy and happiness that the enemy tried to take away from me when I experienced that death anxiety, because I had no hope. I had no peace. I had none of that. I was just in constant fear. And then once that came along and I, took God serious, all of that easily went away.
So God has changed it all. So tell me about from that moment to today, what things that God has restored in your life?
Man, that he restored my relationship with my dad. That's one thing that I like to touch on a lot because, like I said, my dad wasn't the dad that I wanted him to be growing up.
Because he was fighting his own demons, you know what I mean, at that moment, he was
Exactly. So,
doing the
I
same
didn't
thing.
understand it, and at the time I didn't care. I didn't care to understand it. Like, you're a dad, you gotta be a dad. And he was out doing his own thing, and we bumped heads where, I was like, man, let's just put the gloves on. Like, I wanted to just fight him. I had so much anger and hate towards him. But he ended up restoring that, man, that, my relationship with him is 100 times better than what it was. I mean, we have, a great relationship with everything. He's also my pastor, so be able to balance that. And, Father, it's challenging, but it's worth it.
And that's amazing because now you're not only seeing the change in your life, what God have done, but you're seeing the change that God did in your dad to the point that he's not only the father that you always wanted him to be, now he's a man of God. And he's not only being a dad, he's also being your spirit, he's leading you spiritually,
Yeah.
towards God. And that's amazing, man.
Yeah, and I like to tell people I don't say like I don't idolize him, but I look at him like, bro, he's
Yeah,
like,
you're proud of what he had
he
become in God's
yeah,
hands. Yeah.
he's what I like to say, he's a role model, he's a mentor to me, and other things that he had done. He like I said, he brought all of that peace and stuff like that into my life. Me serving God, my mom gave her life to Christ.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
She came up from Florida. Holy Spirit, broke her, and she's over there. She's doing her thing. I pray she can, come back over here. But do that. She's doing her thing, and little by little, I'm trying to get the rest of my family.
Glory to God. Man, God is amazing. That's a great testimony, man.
Yeah, man. Thank
And
you.
I like it that you went boom, 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 right there to the point, man. Well, let's wrap it up. I always tell people that this is their camera right here, and I give them a chance to talk to the people that haven't give their life to God yet. You know what I mean? There's so many people that haven't given their life to God, and the good thing about this podcast is that people are sharing them. You know what I mean? And people are sharing it with people, and they listening to what God did, and somebody's gonna listen to this, gonna say, "Man, that's me right there." And I want you to just use that camera and tell them, something from your heart, about how God did it in you, and they can also do it in them. Just
I got you. First off, you don't serve the Lord. I suggest that you give him a try, because like our pastor likes to say, if you don't like them, we'll take them back. But I can tell you this, with God in your life, that peace, that joy, that depression, those worries that you have, will be going away. He fills you up with that. It is a process, but with him by your side through everything, it's easier than what you would do with the world, and you're truly missing out. And God bless.
Ahí lo tienen, mi gente. El testimonio de Hector Jr. Compártanlo con alguien. Hay personas que tienen que escuchar este testimonio. Gracias, ¿verdad?, por siempre respaldarnos. Y manténganos en sus oraciones. Mantengan a cada una de las personas que se sientan aquí con nosotros en sus oraciones. Porque servirle al Señor es un reto todos los días. Y qué lindo que ellos se sientan aquí, abren el corazón. Y ellos tienen su lucha y sus batallas, pero se han agarrado de Dios. Y nosotros te invitamos que si tú aún no has conocido al Señor como tu único y verdadero Salvador, no es tarde, nunca es tarde. Estás a tiempo todavía, solo tienes que abrir tu corazón y decirle, Señor, entra. Y Él va a hacer lo que Él tenga que hacer y Él va a transformar tu vida, mi gente. So, ahí lo tienen. Gracias por su respaldo. Por favor, suscríbase, compártalo, denle like, active la campanita de notificaciones. Deje sus comentarios. Me gustaría que deje sus comentarios. Y ahí lo tienen. Hasta la próxima. Nos vemos. Bendiciones para adelante y para el cielo. Bendiciones sobreabundantemente.